Good afternoon, everybody. Lovely to see you all again on yet another sunny day in week 2 of our quarantine, siege, whichever you want to call it. We're live from the basement again at Vista Point Studio. I'm very excited to be playing a totally different set of pieces for you this week for our Thursday lunchtime concert. As I said in week 1, the concert series normally takes place at Peter Symonds College with our fabulous musicians there, but as we're all not at college, it's just me and just keeping morale going and keeping my students enthused to practice. So all of that practice will pay off, and I can't wait to hear all your performances in the flesh soon when we get to the other side. So like I said, last week we sort of immersed ourselves in the world of Debussy and the banks of the Seine and the pagodes of East Asia. And this time I'd like to play some pieces written by Rachmaninoff. Rachmaninoff, his legacy, I guess, sort of precedes all of his music. He left the most extraordinary wealth of piano music. And he really showed the piano to its greatest capacity and really explored all of these new textures and these new sounds in his writing. The Morceaux de Fantasie were written in 1892, and this was at the point that Rachmaninoff was at the Moscow Conservatoire when he was 21. They were written in his final year there. He started at St. Petersburg Conservatoire when he was 10 and then moved over to Moscow Conservatoire a couple of years later. So he really started his schooling very early and really showed himself out to be a piano virtuoso of his generation. The 4 pieces I'm going to play are from Opus 3, the Morceaux de Fantasie, and each of them a little bit like the Debussy when he was describing a stamp as Prince. The Morceaux de Fantasie, they're pieces, little fantasy pieces, so different ideas all coming together in an opus number. He started off with his very famous prelude, the first prelude in the collection of preludes that he was to write. And then he was encouraged to write some pieces round it. And these 4 pieces stood as the 4 originals when he started doing that. And then he added a 5th a bit later on. The story of Rachmaninoff is sort of tumultuous in a different way. He started off, as I said, in Moscow Conservatoire and was very deeply touched by the death of his sister, which happened a couple of years before the composition of these Morceaux de Fantasie. So the first piece, the Elegy, whether it doesn't say it's dedicated to her sister, but certainly he would have had these feelings of the emotions of loss, and the Elegy really explores that. It covers a wide range of the keyboard in the opening. And it's a real workout for the left hand one way or another. And that was very systematic of Rachmaninoff's style. He had a very long stretch. I can stretch a 9th, which I guess you can see from the top cam up there. That's my sort of comfortable stretch. Whereas Rachmaninoff could get a 10th, 11th, 12th, 13th. That was his stretch. So it's a lot bigger than mine. And they say that the combined handspans of Rachmaninoff and Liberace could take out the whole of the span of the keyboard. So you're getting a bit of a picture for the enormity of these hands, the enormity of the freedom of writing that it sort of allowed him to explore. So the Elegy, you'll see that sort of movement up and down the keyboard in the very dark key of E flat minor. Then the second piece I'd like to play is the Prelude in C sharp minor. Now this piece stayed with Rachmaninoff for a long time. It became very famous very quickly. And when he was later to emigrate and have to flee to the US, it was one of the pieces that was written into his contract, please can you play it as an encore? And it became very, very sort of attributed with these virtuoso performances that Rachmaninoff did, almost to the point where he absolutely hated this piece. But it really shows off Rachmaninoff in his sort of flamboyant, virtuosic style. And one of the key things to thinking about Rachmaninoff's writing is this sound of the tolling bells. Rachmaninoff had a grandmother who took him to the Russian Orthodox Church, lots of Russian Orthodox church services, and he said that, you know, growing up in Russia, that you were never far away from the bells of church and the idea of these big low bells calling you in. And the opening of that prelude, you can really hear those tolling bells. Slow, stately sound that you get with a bell. There's echoes of his second piano concerto, the opening of the second piano concerto. That sort of bell sound that grows and grows and grows. And at the end of this really exciting prelude, the bells almost take you, sort of slip away. It's have a very quiet ending. Each one's getting progressively quieter. So it just slips away. There's a rather grim story behind this, which I'm not choosing to tell you, but in perhaps lighter days when we all come through all of this, I'll tell you the story behind it. But like I said, this was the prelude which really took Rachmaninoff to another level and showed his virtuosity. Now, I don't know if I can show you the music at the ending here. Let's see if I can get this right. So in the last little bits here, the score moves over to 4 staves rather than the right hand playing the top stave and the left hand playing the bottom stave. There's so much that he wants you to play and he wants you to write. He puts it out across 4 staves. And I remember when I was playing the Debussy Estampe, one of my students said, you know, is it really hard when it goes into 3 staves? And, you know, it's not too bad. 4 gets a bit more complicated, but it sort of opens out what you can see and shows the line much more easily with those 4 staves. So the third piece I'd like to play, the melody, is a beautiful, beautiful piece of music written in E major. There's the preludes in C sharp minor. It's got that real dark Rachmaninoff sound. And the melody in E major, it's relative major. As we know with music, every major scale has a relative minor, a relative major, and they're all linked. So you hear this sort of beautiful sort of change of mood in the melody. It's the same key, interestingly, as this second movement to Rachmaninoff's second piano concerto. It's exactly the same. And it also has this left-hand melody. Rachmaninoff really liked to give the left hand a workout, and this beautiful left hand melody that's like a cello melody that you're just gently accompanying. We hear it at the beginning. Interesting that Rachmaninoff only wrote a cello sonata other than piano music. It was either piano music and symphonies and all the other fantastic works, but for a solo instrument he wrote a beautiful cello sonata, which I absolutely adore as well. So there's echoes of that in this early writing that we've got. The last piece that I'm going to play, the Pulcinella, goes off with real fireworks. Pulcinella is this commedia dell'arte character that was based upon our modern day Punch from Punch and Judy, this rather sort of fickle two-tone character, quite witty, a little bit sarcastic, but sort of very flamboyant character. And I thought we'd sort of end off giving you all the fireworks that Rachmaninoff can possibly throw at you. Again, it uses a wide range of the keyboard, a little bit like the opening of the third movement of Rach 2. Gets the piano rolling and humming. There's a way that he builds up harmonies on top of each other, one on top of the other, on top of the other, and you can feel the piano virtually sort of vibrating with all of the natural harmonics of the instrument under your fingers, and you can really feel that when you're playing some of these flamboyant works. Well, hopefully that's a decent introduction to these 4 marvellous pieces that you may or may not know. Some of them more famous than others, but certainly worth a listen to. So the first one, the Elegy, the second, the Prelude, the third, the Melody, and the 4th piece, the Pulcinella. So here we are on week 2, and enjoying the change from Debussy to Rachmaninoff. thank you everyone for listening. Next week we'll be doing something a little bit different for Easter, lightening the mood again. We've had a slightly darker set of pieces from Rachmaninoff, and to lighten the mood again, all ready for Easter, and very much looking forward to seeing you all then. Thank you very much. Bye bye.